Hi. All right, let's see how this goes. So, in this section, we're at part two for the creating and building section of this. So, I wasn't going to do, I was going to wait till I had a little bit of my own process done. I don't know. I'm a little like kind of foggy this morning, which is surprising me. I haven't talked yet. So, it's like, so I'm kind of surprising myself. But this one's quick. We're just going to do an exercise and for working with limited beliefs. Checking my mic. And so if you watched the live yesterday and there's I really if this is a process that you want to get into, um, I really recommend it because we're talking about how you begin a process of creation and the creation before the building. So it's like this is the creative process, and then the building is the bringing it into the world. But this is where we're finding ideas and starting to tap into what it is, like whatever this thing is that is sort of like angsty and aching in us to be created. And that angst, like that feeling of like, "Oh, this is like an enemy to me," this anxiety or this sensibility, it's transmuting energy. It's transmuting that sense of there's something I'm supposed to be doing and feeling bad about it. And this is why we address shame when we're doing the ascending, because there is nothing bad about this. It's just an uncomfortable feeling. And the uncomfortable feeling is supporting a divining process of moving in the direction of just this integrity of your actual existence, revealing itself, like and or yeah, like manifesting itself really. So, okay, so yesterday we talked about inquiry. Before that, even in sort of the preamble sessions, we talked a little bit about in the reading. And if you're following along in the book, this is page in our hymnal, page 292. Working with Crosscurrents, all we have here is the follow-up exercise to yesterday's process, which was inquiry and receptivity. I'm not going to go over it too much again, just that the overall theme is that the first step to this is finding what your questions are. It's not, it's getting as close to a question that has juice in it for you, like something that you feel like, "I want to know the answer to that." And part of this unpatterning is acknowledging the fact that we're kind of our programming involves, like, a real, like, nervousness not about not having answers, like doing badly on tests or being called on in class and not having answers. And even in school that we're taught that questioning makes us troublesome, that like questions, unless they actually like support the narrative that's being taught are considered sort of like troublemaking kind of stuff. So it's like the so there can be, especially since we're in school when our nervous system is getting formed, it can cause like real anxiety. Like it's like it's in reflex, the feeling of like not knowing answers being really unsettling and feeling unsafe and feeling shameful. So part of the toning and tuning of our nervous system is reconciling that and going back to being comfortable being like learning how to regulate our nervous system is to face these programmings and also be able to consciously resurface them. So we're not like on one hand we're consciously resurfacing these patterns, and we have the tools for emotional regulation, which are the somatic practices that we have that are in the techniques and exercises and in chapter 11 in this book. And there's others, but these are just what's included in this tome. So one of the things that, it's interesting because, some people, I forget sometimes that, so it's been coming up a lot with folks who are talking about internal what's the term for it? I'm not gonna look it up. Um, someone was brought up to me. What's the term for this? Internal dialogue. Um, and that with a lot of adaptations and the fracturing it causes, there's a lot of, like, a voice in your head that is not on your side, like, a voice of questioning, of doubting, of shaming. It's like it sort of, like, mimics a protection, like, it's protecting you. If you don't follow this, everything's gonna fall apart, or you're not gonna be safe, or you're going to be shunned socially. All sorts of I mean, I really it's just, like, it's such a passion for me. I could go on forever about this. But the thing is that is not real. It's like a construction, but it's made kind of like a, shadow on a cave where light is shining through it, so it appears really large, and, and it doesn't mean that it's not scary, so it's not diminishing it. There's in this work, there's kind of this juxtaposition between something being very real and not real at all. So the experience we're having interfacing with it is very real, but the construct of it is something that was that's been like elaborately created so that we perceive it to be real, like objectively real. And of course, one of the things that makes this challenging is that there's shared collective conscious where other people were programmed the same way, so they see it also. So it's like, and this is one of the things that's really, in this process, it's either like renunciation, where it's like removal, or it's like finding people and folks finding community where people are seeking to really consciously reclaim this stuff. So why am I talking about this with talking about cross currents? Because in this process of creating and building, in this where we are doing the inquiry and the receptivity, one of the things is if you create a lot of space, things are just like it's kind of like clutter that whatever the default setting is for filling up a space is going to start to happen. So it's kind of like the anxiety. And this is, once again, this is why like 90% of this book is about the ascending pathway. And that's why this is incredibly unsexy work, because people, it's kind of like, people want to be able to play like, the Stairway to Heaven on the guitar in the first lesson. And it's like, you'll be able to play this like, like you'll be able to write your own extraordinary music, and sound incredible doing it, even more incredible than like doing a cover of someone else's. But the work and the fundamentals of building up and like building back through the patterning is like, I mean, it feels unsexy, and also the thing is, like, when you're doing it, it's challenging, but the reward on the other side is, like, one of the things is the internal dialogue is, there just isn't really anything else. Like, the thing about there being someone else in there that you're talking with, there are still thoughts. There's still I mean, this is like the river, as in, covered in chapter 10, like, thoughts are not something that, like, go away. Um, like, they're just kind of part of metabolizing cognition. So, it's just the things that kind of, like, are like, "Whoa," like, "Huh, okay." Like, well, they'll just kind of keep it's like a liver or like a digestive system. It's just you're gonna process the stuff you take in. And that's just and, like, the quality and the, intensity and the speed and the overwhelmingness of those thoughts, like, that they take on is going to be largely informed by adaptations in all the hubs. So if they'll take on the meaning of our adaptations and our shadows, like, it'll take on fear, like, this is something to be afraid of. So it'll just like, these notions will attach themselves to any material that they're given. So, shame. It's like, "Oh my god, I should be so embarrassed that I'm thinking this or that I saw this or this," like, whatever, like that kind of thing. But anyway, so thoughts are still there, but the internal dialogue, people have been talking about the internal dialogue. And so one of the things I have to say is in this process that if you're asking a question with no answer into the void, part of what's going to talk back to you is going to be your adaptations. Um, so this is a process where it's another way to approach adaptations, actually. It's another way to transform them, is to see them. Like, we wanna see them. We want, if we can, is to be able to see them. Why am I like, my face is so itchy? Uh, there's like it's but listen, tangent. I was looking at the earlier videos a while back, and I was noticing, I was like, I really used to, like, really, like, put makeup on. I bought, like, a special hair dryer to make my hair look nice. I don't know, maybe someday. It's just not part of my thing, like, makeup and hair. I really wish it was. I love seeing other people's hair and makeup done nicely. So, I mean, listen, maybe this is yeah, so there's that. I love seeing it, but apparently it's like, like, apparently, like, it's, like, onerous for me. There's no I don't know, whatever. I do love makeup, though. It's just the process of putting it on. I don't know, whatever. Enough. Back to the topic. So, like, that's the commercial for makeup? Page commercial for makeup? So back to this thing, which is that what will happen is that in this open space, there's a lot more things I could say on this. I'm gonna kind of condense this. Um, the things will arise. It'll create room for you to see, like, what your, like, biggest anxieties and biggest shames are, and guilts and griefs, and it's like, "Oh my god," like isolation. People will laugh at me. People say, "Who are you to do this?" Trying to think of some really common ones. I'll put myself in danger. People who have to do with, like, that I need to have think highly of me for professional reasons. Will think less of me, and that'll put my livelihood at risk. Like, I'll look stupid. I'll prove people right. Um, I don't have enough experience. I'm not comfortable being visible. I don't know how to do it. Big one addressed in the previous session. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how, so how, not only do I not know how to do it, but it's like, then how on earth do I think I'm the person who should be doing this thing? Um, so crosscurrents. And here's so one little sort of snippet I'm going to put in there is that, like, nobody's really qualified. Like, there's this very like, yeah, and there's a magic to transmuting that energy of anxiety, of, like, fear, into the power of pushing through. There's magic there. When you feel the shame and if you feel any kind of internal dialogue speaking to you, it's like harnessing the power of speaking back to it. Like, and it's like, so this is why, even the back to the quote in the opening, is whatever good things we build end up building us. So let's talk about the cross currents. So, okay, so here you are, you have your questions. And my question, I'm not going to share a ton of personal stuff, because for me right now, the things that are coming up true to form are in in my inquiry and my receptivity are things that are really feel very sensitive to me. Like, I'm actually very like, not sensitive, they're, like, kind of precious and personal and intimate, and they're surprising me, of course. It's not what I'm asking for, or it's not what I'm consciously asking, or no, it's not what I'm expecting. I keep thinking like, "Oh, I know sort like, maybe I know, like, the sort of genre that this is gonna come through on," and it doesn't. And that's another thing where it's like, when you're asking this and other things are coming through, it's just anything that has charge to it is paying attention to it and being like, "What does this have to do with this?" Ask any questions you want in the chat, time. I mean, I don't know when you'll watch this. You could watch this in, like, 5 years, and I'll be, like, I don't know, living in a tree with my cat or something. But, to the best of my ability, I'll answer questions on this. But let's talk about dealing with crosscurrents. And crosscurrents are Anodea Judith. She uses this term, instead of limiting beliefs. And I like it. Because the thing to me about a crosscurrent, I guess, and I'm thinking, and I'm realizing this in real time right now, is that a crosscurrent is like it actually, I feel like it points more to what the phenomenon is, which is just this sort of this, like, an energetic, like, this quality that is gonna take on whatever you put in front of it. It's like the limiting belief makes it be like it's this thing that can be reconciled versus, like, a weather pattern. Yeah. It's like, yeah, it's kind of like, I don't know why this is the analogy, but it's like a rock. It's like a limiting belief to me feels like sort of like a rock you're moving out of your driveway, and the cross current is like the weather pattern that keeps blowing rocks into your driveway. I don't have a driveway. I live in the city, but whatever. I don't know. This just came through. Okay, so let's talk about this as an exercise, and then I'm gonna wrap it up and go get breakfast. So start with like stating your perceived limitation. So I think one thing that's important in this is that we're not denying them. So when something comes up, that we don't negate it. We're like, we see you, come forward. What do you have to say? Because that's one of the powers that the cross currents have. Is that we're like, "Oh, I don't want that," like, it's like, "Nope, what do you have to say? Speak up," you can share it with the class, with the cross current, which is, it's like, "Well, I don't know how to do this," right? It's like, or, yeah, actually, this is right here, I guess I'd read that. So, it's like you're, instead of being like, "No, I have to be strong and I'm not gonna listen," it's like, "No, we're gonna listen. Come up. Come on. Let's hear it. What do you have to say? Give me your best here." And so so state your perceived limitation. So as you're in this process of, and I should have done these together, honestly, but whatever, um, is in your inquiry and your receptivity, when the cross currents come up, instead of just trying to be like, fend them off, we're actually calling them forward, because this is part of the transformation process, is acknowledging these things, consciously processing them. So it's like, what's the first thing that comes up when you're like, okay, here's my inquiry, like, what's my purpose? And it's like, it's like, okay, and then the receptivity says, your purpose is to create the parinama method. And if I say, I don't know how to do that, or like, you don't know how to write a book, and it's too much of it. I'm thinking of the things that came up for me. It's too much of a change for who people think you are, or at least how I perceived people thought I was. It's like I wouldn't be convincing, or like I wouldn't be, I don't know, I wouldn't have the whatever. It's just like, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? And then there are other things that are like, well, I don't really like this kind of thing, like gurus and frameworks and fixing people and stuff. So there was that was a cross current. So let's start with I don't know how to do this. So take a second and just think of something. Next, flip the statement into what the person you need to become in this process would say. You don't need to be this person yet. In fact, if you are, you're thinking too small. I mean, because honestly, this process is such hard work. You're going to do it one way or the other. You might as well do it for something like that. That's really a swing for the fences thing. It needs to, yeah. I mean, truly, you're going to do the work. You might as well yeah, you're gonna put it in. So this exercise okay, so you don't need to be the person. In fact, if you are, you're thinking too small. This exercise tries on a future version of yourself when you flip the limiting statement and say, I know how to do it now. I know how to do it. I know how to do it. And it's not saying that you know how to do it. You're trying on the feeling of being the person that knows how to do it and that you're seeing it's possible in yourself. So even the thing is, it's like so part of the thing is like and there's a feeling in this. Like I know how to do it. And it's not the delulu thing that people talk about, the delusion. It's literally like you're just trying on the future state feeling. So if it's kind of like, let's see, like it's like yeah, even like I'm the correct person for this. I'm absolutely the right person for this. Who else? Who else? Who else? Who else? It's like like what how could it be me? It's like who else? Who else? Who else? So I'm finding right now as I'm doing it, it's there's an aspect of like the future and also speaking to that fractured thing and integrating it and calling it out and evaporating it in if the it's kind of it's like if the tolerance for the limiting belief is just it's kind of like a bully. It's like if you stop paying attention to it and acknowledging it, it goes and sort of like how it would go look for something that would give it some satisfaction and some validation. I mean, bully is like literally this is like a third hub special because a bully is all about external validation. Like this is just a side note. I'm just pulling this in. It's like a bully is literally does not have true power because it constantly needs external validation to make itself real. So if you do not validate it in any way, like energy, like that, it just literally it has no power. So it just has to evaporate. It has to be revealed for being false. So this is your intention. State it clearly and imagine how it will feel. Now observe how your body responds. You'll probably be surprised. Okay, we already did a little bit of that. So that was a little bit spoilered. I'm doing it right now inside. Ooh, it's really powerful. Not even saying it, I'm thinking it. Wow, it's really activating me. So, yeah, I mean, I guess you don't say it out loud, apparently, as I'm learning every other time. Yeah. Oof. Oof. Yeah. So if you notice a cross current coming from an internalized critic, do what Anna Day Judith teaches. Exaggerate it to reveal its maturity. If I think, "I can't do this," say it aloud and express it with your body. Maybe it's pouty, snarky, petulant. Stomp your feet and exaggerate your facial expression and tone of voice to be a full expression of the cross current. See it for what it is. Yeah, this is a really key one. I'm actually like, and this is going to come up very soon in coming pages, which is like when this process is still in its very nascent stage, the space that it gets expressed in has to be very protected, very safe. And since right now I'm talking into the void, like to anybody who could watch this, I'm not going to share it. Um, if we were in a small group, I would, but so it's not that it's not available, it's just not available for anybody who chances upon this video. It's way too precious, and so is yours. Um, but this process of the cross current is like it's exposing that internalized critic. So going back to like, I don't know how to do this. Like this thing, that voice is not it's not you. It's not your integrity. Like, because the intent, it's like it's not its intent is to dissuade you. Because the simple fact is like, "Yeah, I don't know how to do this." That's not a fixed fact, right? It's not a fixed fact. The tone of, "I don't know how to do this," is like, for me, as I'm, like, looking at this, is like, objectively, "I don't know how to do this," is not, like, the words, because it's like, "Yeah, I don't know how to do this yet." But it's like when with the cross current, and once again, this goes to like, I think the words are the rock in the driveway, and the feeling is the weather pattern that blows the rocks in. It's that feeling of what that is. It's like, I don't know how to do that, is like, it's the implication behind it. It's like, yeah, you don't know how to do it. So why, like, so there's that kind of like deeper thing, which is like this kind of like sneering, discouraging. Yeah, I'm speaking from my, like, embarrassed, shame-filled. Yeah, I mean, because I think about how, in my the amount of shame in my own childhood was, like, always trying like, this thing, and I think a lot of parents do this where they're trying to protect their kids from embarrassment, like, and so that voice, when we actually impersonate it in this part of this exercise, which is like calling forward the cross current. So it's like, I don't know how to do this. And like, really, and this is again, it's like we're not trying to, positive vibes only. We're actually trying to pull forward the limiting beliefs. Cause when they're on the periphery, they're so effective. Like, all this stuff, it's like once you look at it in the light, it's like, it's like something sinister, that it's like a little squeaky toy in a closet that's in the dark, while you're alone in the house making squeaking sounds, is like fucking terrifying, right? It's like, what the but if you just look and it's like a little duck in the closet and you're looking at it, it's like, oh, it's like, you know, like, or like a doll or whatever, just like the stuff that's like it's like really like ultimately harmless, but it's like it becomes sinister. This is why we pull it forward. So it's kind of like, one of the things is like, you don't even, it's not necessary to like pull the person forward and be like, okay, I'm gonna psychologically turn this into, it does happen that way. But I want, like, this is more just like in the belief as it's been housed and it's internalized, is to, it's like, I can't do this. And so for me, Like, so, it's like, okay, it's like, say it aloud and express it with your body. I'm gonna do this a little bit. So maybe, maybe it's pouty, snarky, petulant, stomp your feet and exaggerate your facial expressions and tone of voice and be a full expression of a cross current and see what it is. And for me, it's actually very like, it's like stern. It's like, you don't know how to do this. You don't know how to do this. And it's like really seeing, like, and of course it summons up the like, but it's just kind of, and then it's like the more it's like bringing it forward, the squeaky toy, and it's like, oh, like you didn't know how to do shit. Like, your receipts weren't there. Like, oh, stern voice person, like, and it's kind of like, and but it instead of intellectualizing it, keeping it kind of like impersonating it. I mean, some people where it's like, "I can't do it. It's too hard," it'll be like, "It's too hard. It's too hard." Like really bringing it into like your physicality. And I think one of the things is like seeing the cross current. This is also where back to the transformational aspect of creating is that seeing it, it's bringing forward a part of ourselves that we don't like about ourselves, that we think like, "Oh, that's bossy. That's this, like, bossy, mean part of me that is like, that I'm doing to myself," when I'm saying like, "You don't know how to do this," or "You're," like, yeah, I'm not gonna say like the things I haven't like. And, like, it's interesting because it's, like, to pull it forward is to also see that it's, like, actually something you're having a conversation with. So the idea that that's part of yourself that is, like, kind of dark and shitty, it's like, no, that's kind of a stowaway. So it's, like, kind of working with the stowaway a bit and exposing it and being like, "Okay, you didn't pay for a ticket. You're getting off at the next station, and we're gonna keep on going." And listen, sometimes the fucking stowaway will, like, run the track and hop on in the next, and you have to, like, kinda keep working this through. That's pretty normal. Like, but it's like once there's a sort of like a, I know now kinda thing with it, it's, there yeah, once there's a recognition, it is, the transformation just will begin. It's really a matter of actually, like, velocity, but it's like it's started. So it's like the momentum is happening. Okay, I'm gonna read the rest here. So perfection is flaw seeking and debilitating. So needing to know how to do everything or having credentials before you begin this process interferes with building and creating. See chapter 10. And it is like a really, I will tell you, it is like such a power move to destabilize people by, and it's a nefarious power move to destabilize people by having them constantly believe that they don't have what it takes, or they don't have the qualities, they don't have this. I mean, like, please, like, if you have not been in the world and experienced someone using this on you, and being like well-meaning, everything should be constructive. It should always be sort of like, here, let's redirect this in something that actually, like, makes sense or is a productive step in the direction of this or whatever. But a lot of these kind of like, yeah, I don't really see that for you. I can think of people, and this is like, yeah, this is like a whole, I could do a diatribe on this for a long time. But this is, you think of it, there have very likely been a lot of people that are indoctrinated that are projecting their own thing about this on you, which is that, that's like, "Yeah, are you sure about that?" And I'll tell you, the people who are like, if you check the receipts, if you see people who are living like really brightly and abundantly and full of life and creating like crazy and just having this like aspirational quality, you never see them trying to knock you down and be like, "Yeah, I don't think you can do that." They're like, "Yeah, no, I didn't know how to do it either." You're never gonna get I mean, it's really it's so oh, yeah. I'll say, "Look, you just have to kinda start with something." You just gotta keep kinda like if you have, like, juice for it, you just keep showing up for it. Like, the thing isn't really whether you have talent for it, if you can, if you won't. It's whether you have juice for it. It's like your juice for something. And it's kind of like the juice is your integrity and sort of the divining rod for the things that really align with who you are. And it's kind of like it's not the thing is it's not like, like if you try something and you don't do it, it's not like, "Oh my gosh, this just showed me that I'm, sort of can't do things." It's like that's just not your thing. That's not your thing, and it just that's not it's not indicative of anything, and if it and this is also, where it's a really unpopular notion to give up on things that don't feel right. People hate that, like, they go, "Oh my god," "quitters," but if you're and it's like it's also sort of a thing people who, like, oscillate throughout different paths and experiences, it's now becoming a lot more, I think, like, a bit more sort of what I don't know, acceptable or whatever, but yeah, it's like you're seeking juice, you're seeking that activation, and once again, this goes full circle for the inquiry and the receptivity, is that it's kind of like, "Oh, this is actually a good full circle," which is like, it's asking the question that has energy in it, and then the receptivity, like, for me right now is the thing I'm like, "That's it?" But I know now enough that it's like there's like a steering function in this that's pointing me in the right direction, and that if I follow the thing I sort of like know or believe is the right thing to do, I'm gonna lose juice, and it's gonna like the way that I understand to do something, um, only works if I can, like, actually apply conviction and energized, like, devotion to it. It's like, yeah, I don't know. That so, okay. So seeing other people who don't adhere to limiting perfectionism, folks who proceed with a certain intrepid, idiotic brilliance can be triggering, and the inner critic can get loud as the suppressed self activates, perhaps thinking, "I can't believe they're doing that," or "They're so unqualified building things they have no business building." So instead of allowing this to become a hang up, be willing to learn as you go. You may start as a novice, but the process of building will change you. You may question what value you bring as a person who wants to do something you haven't done before, but the value you bring will be uniquely yours, and in many ways, it will reveal itself over time. The key is to stick with it. Mhm, mhm. So, okay, so here the 2 components here for part 1 are or, the 5th the 7th hub, I'm not using too much paranormal jargon here, uh, too much. I can't help it. It's like now part of my vernacular, but I just used another word that's like jargony, vernacular. But the 2 steps here in this first step of creating and building, we're in the creating part. Building comes later. And the feeling, I totally respect that feeling of being like, I should be building something. There should be evidence. There should be. This is like a space that has like no matter in it. Like no there's nothing provable in this. There's nothing this is inner work. Like, this is all happening in a sort of the numinous, luminal, like, whatever. This is and this is why, yeah, I'm not gonna kind of blah 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 on that. But this is this essential step. It's like the prep work for painting, which is that it's like, oh, like you're never gonna see all of the work that you did to like tape the edges and this and that and this and that. And it's like that's not fun. I want to be painting. It's like I want the satisfaction of my wall painted. And it's like if you don't do the prep work, it's like mess. If you don't do the primer, if you don't do the, like if you don't set it up, it's like it's just, what it become, it's like actually I'm not gonna say it's a mess, whatever, but it's just it's a different outcome. But the need to be doing right away is very understandable. So it's not, like, don't do it's just it's understandable. This is a very and I like honor you in this. This is a very challenging process to undertake. And it's certainly requires incredible fortitude because this process of like inquiry, it's like, what is my question that I don't have an answer for? What is my question I don't have an answer for? That alone, to have a question that you're willing to accept that you don't know what the answer is already separated you from like 99% of the population. Like you've already separated yourself in terms of being on an intrepid journey. Is to say, I'm going to ask a question in good faith do not have an answer for, and I'm going to just become very receptive to what could, to like the process of like, for me, it's like now happening a lot in my sleep. But also it used to happen a lot more with like things that had to do with just things that would come into my life that were material things, and information, conversations, something somebody would say, I'd be like, that like, so however it comes through is how it comes through. But it's like a lot of this is getting a better divining rod for trusting yourself for the things that sort of lean you in and that draw you in, that those really matter, that they're important. And once again, this is why the ascending pathway is so important, because it's sanding off all the adaptations that distort and confuse us and overwhelm us from being able to like hear that voice of ours and trust it. So it's like if we've left fear and a lot of shame, chronic, that we're always vigilant, if we're always shameful, it's and filled with like embarrassment and like, oh gosh, like that, like like the voice has a harder time. It gets drowned out by these noises. So this is it's a very brave undertaking, and it's important because this is how we change the world. This is how you change your world. And whatever scope that means, if you just change your world, that changes the world. Even this notion that's like, oh, you have to do something that's going to change everybody. It's like, that's not even real. The idea that like that this sort of ocean of other people's sort of whatever attention is like the thing that's going to finally do it for you. Your direct experience is the thing that changes the world. And as that changes the world changes around you. You're affecting the world in a very particular way. This is a different model than the model of current of like sort of commerce and trade in terms of the typical thing of like how to monetize something immediately. It's like having built organizations. It's like it's such a temptation to get to that just painting. It's like we want to paint. The room has to be painted. The room needs to be painted, and it's like, right, but like we want to live in that room, and we like like the outcome of like the prep work of creating something, even just being like, look, we don't have enough time to get the right paint, so let's just start painting, because we want to be painters. We're painters, so we paint, that kind of thing. And it's like the whole thing about, even I would go, so to continue this analogy, to even be spending some time considering what the right color is for the future state of the type of environment you want to create. Right? So it's like there's even further analogies into this of like, I wanna be doing versus I wanna be like considering like the bit larger context and the greater vision on this. So yeah, you're important. I mean, it's one thing I think that in doing the one thing that I know for sure is that your existence matters in this way that is beyond what our so the technology of our nervous system even gives us like immediate access to. is that the importance, and this is another thing that's, like, been programmed out of us, is to not be selfish and not have this, like, inner kind of love and kind of adoration and fascination with the potential that exists within us. And it's like, what better way to inspire and change the world than to access your own limitless capability and capacity and to continue that exploration. At least that's how I feel right now. It's where I am right now with this. So anyhow, so that's it. And so if you have, like I said, if there are any questions, certainly place them in the chat. And once again, I don't know when, if it's a comment made in like 5 years and I'm living in a tree with my cat, who knows? Maybe like whatever. But yeah, also for folks, there are folks who want to, who don't want to be putting their questions in in the public chat. So they've sent me, so sending messages at to the Parinama method on Instagram and DM me there. Because it matters to me, and to the extent that I can, I like supporting your process is incredibly meaningful for me. But also supporting your process in a way that I'm not interfering with it or getting in the way of it. I'm not trying to, this is yours. And in this, I'm I'm a servant to this. I'm not it's really, yeah. So that's another thing where it's, when I can feel in myself that I'm becoming, um, another sort of like way to exercise a pattern of having somebody that knows more than you do, I will kind of when I could detect it, I'm not like, all knowing. But I'm really mindful of this because it's really important to me that you understand how powerful your knowing is and your integrity and your actualization and your even transcendence is. It's yours. And we're doing it together. So I'm sending you a lot of love and appreciation. Thank you. Thank you, person. Hi. So I don't know if you see this. It's like on the screen, I see the one person watching, and I'm appreciating you. Thank you. Thank you. It's nice to be in here with you, whoever you are, wherever you are. So I will see you next time, and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much for being along for this ride, and much love. Bye for now.